Outside my window, this man was singing the Nazi party anthem. When Jewish blood flows from our knives,
everything will be well. That was the moment when I decided, that's enough, I'm out of here. The longer the war lasted, the crueler people became. Austria was occupied by Hitler in March of 1938. But by August, I decided it was time to leave without any permission across the border into Switzerland. I was an American lover from the word go. I arrived in New York in May of 1939. I really felt that this was my home. Europe was a very stiff, conservative, very suspicious kind of society. Here, everybody was friendly and hospitable and pleasant. We were told that every Japanese civilian has been armed. It was of great concern to the soldiers and to the officers and the commanders. I saw that our fleet was being attacked by kamikazes. I was standing up and my crew was in the trenches. I got hit in the back with shrapnel. I got hit in my jaw with shrapnel. As far as I know, 2 of them got killed and the rest of them got wounded. I was walking down Madison Avenue when I stopped dead in my track. There I saw the most beautiful woman I ever saw in my life. And this is how I met my wife. She had been incarcerated in many concentration camps throughout the war. She is the one I think about most when people ask me about the war and my experience. There's no other experience that I have that is more lasting, more meaningful than being married to her for 58 years.
I've killed. And it's a horrible feeling because I realize I'm killing some of my own relatives. I'm a first generation from Germany. Shuffle is about as German as you can get. In German, it means bushel. Coach Schreiber came in and said, I've got bad news. The Japanese have just bombed Pearl Harbor. I doubt if any of us really knew where in the hell Pearl Harbor was. I became a company commander of 5 other second lieutenants and 200 men attached to the British Army. After 3 days of sailing, the ship turned south and we headed back east. I went to see the brigadier. I said, sir, my men are down here in this hole. They haven't been on deck for 3 days. I've got to know what's happening. He said, we're going to make the invasion of North Africa. And nobody guessed we were going into North Africa. The first time we came under fire was in Algiers. Snipers started shooting. And my first thought was, how do I get these men out of this mess I've got them in? And this kid on the right said, sir, I think they've retreated. I said, there's no way they've retreated. And he said, yes, they have. And the next thing I knew, he's standing up, killed, right then and there. And then I yelled at my men, damn it, don't anybody else stand up. I feel so obligated that I didn't get up and tackle that kid. The medics came running, then the firing stopped, and I went down with wounds all over me. I think my men to save my life. Now they might have done some of it out of duty. Maybe some out of just pure respect. I don't know whether I was any good or not. Other people have to judge that. I just hope I'd have enough guts to get up and say, I'll take over. That's what makes a good officer, if that's an answer.
I'm so grateful to be alive and to still be part of today's world. I was a loner in the Army, and I'm a loner now. I was happy being all by myself. I enjoyed being alone. I still enjoy being alone. I'm 8 decades old, and I'm not going to change now. We were told not to make friendships because there was a good chance that they would not be there the next morning in combat. And I pretty well followed that. I was assigned to Graves registration. Our job was to get in some sort of a vehicle looking for dead Americans. The dead were in every possible grotesque position, arms up in the air. Most of them had their eyes open. I could not get myself to look at a dead GI because his eyes were open and looking at me. I was a devout Methodist when I went over. Went to church every Sunday, and the war blew my religion away, and I haven't been to a church in 60 years, and I never will, because I no longer am a believer. I spent 32 years as a reporter, almost all of it on the police and fire beat as an investigative reporter. During that time, I won 35 awards for my work, a few of them national. Being on the police beat and the fire beat shaped my entire life because it was, in one sense, a continuation of the war. Watching people being blown apart, it never goes away. It never goes away, and it never dulls its vision. It's just as sharp today as I'm talking to you as it was back then.
Growing up with the Japanese parents, it was a little different, but at the same time, I didn't feel that much different. I always thought that the military would be my lifelong ambition. Those are the things that I respected, is uniformity, conformity, and obedience. I found out later that my father was going to take the whole family before the war back to Japan, both my brother and sister. But then prior to that time, I joined the Army. So my parents decided to stay in America and wait it out. But I dread to think that if I didn't join the Army, that I might have been fighting for the wrong side. There was such a clamor against anything Japanese on the West Coast. And then, of course, we had rumors that they're going to be evacuated, but they didn't know where until they hastily constructed 10 internment centers inland. And at that point, I realized that things were coming to a head. We have more reason to fight for our country and prove that we're more than loyal. So we had to go overboard. And we were really proud to be who we were, and to have a number and a name and a regiment that we had to uphold. And that was one reason why I think we took so many casualties. I thought maybe I would be treated differently, but I wasn't. I made friends along the way, and we stuck together, and we kind of corresponded after the war. I had very few close friends, but those who were close were very close. And then we kept in touch throughout the rest of our lives. I went out to Korea and Vietnam, and I wasn't in direct combat in those days, but I knew that the threat was there, of a loss of a life or a limb. I feel pretty lucky now, living this long. We had a slogan, be all you can be. And I think that fit me quite well later on in life. And even though I didn't have the background or training, why you try to be all you can be.
There were 4 black regiments that came through after the Civil War. So we had a sense of respectability for the military. We figured we should be included as a part of it. I decided that I'd rather go into the Air Force than into the infantry. And I knew there was a program where the military was starting training blacks for be pilots in the Air Corps. And if you could pass the test, then you could qualify for the program. It was 2 days before the invasion of southern France. We went in at 15,000 feet, went inland, and then dove for the deck and hit the radar stations and come back out to the Mediterranean. The guy flying number 17 was Richard Macon, and he and I were the last 2 in the dive. Macon's plane in the middle of the dive was hit by ground fire. And I watched the plane go into this large headquarters company, and there were more than 40 German officers and men in that building that perished. It was 60 years before we knew that. I don't think the American military still knows it today. After I had returned home, I had applied for engineering school that was being run by North American, which manufactured and built the P-51, and I was turned down, and I knew there were a couple of white guys that did not have the experience I had that were assigned to that school. The CEO of North American had made the statement that he would never have any blacks working for his company. Maybe the white public didn't know what was being done. The black public did. So we knew that things were not what they should be, but we also knew that we had learned how to cope with what was there.
I had an uncle in the United States Navy, and I looked up to him. He always told me, Jack, if you ever want to go into the service, go into the United States Navy. You would have a place to sleep every night, you would have meals every day, and even though you'd be out to sea all the time, it was a good life. I got home that night, and my father, he said, he always said to me at the dinner table, how's work today? I says, Dad, I didn't go to work today. And he looked up at me and says, you did what? What did you do? He said, I joined the Navy. And my mother was walking in with a plate for dinner, and she dropped it on the floor. I decided that I would like to be in destroyers. You're on a battleship with 2,000 guys, you know, all you knew was just a few guys. But we knew all our officers, and to this day, I love that. My mother was a wonderful lady. She found out that my ship sunk. She turned gray in 3 days. I felt in my mind, in the water, that I got too much to do yet in my life. I'm only 18, and even though I'm not educated the way I'd like to be, maybe I will. If I get out of this, I can do something, but I'm gonna find something. I'm not gonna give up. "38 years after the battle, we all decided, let's do something for all our guys that didn't come back. And let's honor them in Tappy 3, all those 895 guys that died that morning, let's honor them in San Diego at the Fort Rosecrans military, and we did that. In my opinion, war is a terrible thing. I think that on this planet Earth, there'll always be wars. But wars are very bad. I never thought in my life, in my young life, that I would see what I saw and had to go through what I went through.